All right. We are live, everyone. Welcome to American Hammers TV, another episode of Fixture Focus. Our next match, as many of you know, is against Burnley at Turf Moor tomorrow. I think it's a 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern kickoff, and we are joined by Mike, who hails currently from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Mike, welcome to Fixture Focus. Glad to have you.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for joining. So we were talking about it a little bit before we went live, and I didn't want to dive into it too much because it sounded like a pretty interesting story. So why don't you dive a bit deeper into, why or how you became a Burnley fan?
Well, I was kind of born a Burnley fan because I was born in Burnley General Hospital, which is about a mile from the stadium. You can hear the crowd from the hospital rooms, so it's in the blood. And once it's in the blood, you don't get to give it up, no matter how bad your team can be. Different years.
Were your parents British and then you moved to America? Were your parents American and you just happened to be born over there? How did that work out?
I actually met an American girl in college and ended up moving here, so that's how I ended up in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. So you didn't move here until college.
I was in my early 20s when I moved here. So.
Okay, yeah, because it's interesting because your accent is, I can definitely hear a tint of, like UK, UK accent, but it actually sounds more American to me. I actually wouldn't have ever known that that you had lived there in the early parts of your life. So no, so yeah, you're born in Burnley. Were your parents Burnley fans at all? Like,
yeah, my dad was a season ticket holder. He used to go back in the 50s when Burnley were one of the best teams in Europe and won the won the equivalent of the Premier League back in the early 60s. Back then, West Ham and Burnley were two of the best teams, so it was like the heyday for the team.
Wow. I bet there were some great nights at Turf Moor. It's definitely one of the stadiums that I really want to visit. It just seems like it's just got quite like, that old school English ground atmosphere that
Sure.
That has the stands right on top of the field, and the fans can really provide that home field advantage. A lot like the old Upton Park for West Ham.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad used to go and watch when Burnley were playing, and West Ham would have Bobby Moore playing for him and people like that. So, really the heyday for both teams.
Would have loved to have been there. So let's get into actually your team. So this is the fourth straight year you guys are in the Premier League.
Yeah, it is.
Fourth, yeah.
Yeah, and this is the longest since the early 70s that we've been in the top division. So it's we're starting to become, kind of regulars in the top flight.
Yeah, it seems like there have been a few clubs that have really started to establish themselves. Clubs that were once consistent yo-yo clubs that are now established Premier League clubs. I can think of Bournemouth they weren't even really a yo-yo club. They just had never had never been to the Premier League, and now they're pretty established, I think. What other clubs are there?
West Brom used to be the
I was about to say West Brom used to be. I mean, up until this year, Watford had been doing well the last few years. Who knows? I mean, they got a big win today, but who knows what'll happen with them. But actually, when I think of those teams that are, they're never. I mean, never say never, but you guys probably are never going to challenge for a league title, maybe not even Champions League. Same with Bournemouth. But when I think of your two teams, I think of an identity, a culture that runs consistent throughout all levels of the club, and it shows on the pitch. I think that's a huge reason for Bournemouth's established success and also Burnley's as well. And I think that all starts with the man on top, and that's Sean Dyche, a man who, if you play for him, you know exactly what you're going to get, exactly what he wants you to do, exactly what he wants out of his team. Hard-nosed, defensive-minded first. How important do you think? I mean, do you? That's just my opinion. I don't know if you agree with me. How important, though, if you do agree with me, is that?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Sean Dyche has been. He's considered royalty in Burnley. He has his own pub named after him and everything.
Oh, nice.
But he really, the way he runs things, it's a tight ship, and he makes sure that everybody knows what their job is. And we're not the biggest team with flair, but there's not many teams that are going to outwork us or outrun us, and that's what he puts into everybody. And every now and again we show a little bit of skill, but we're pretty much a functional team more than anything. And that's what we have to be, because we can't afford, to spend 45 million on a Haller or an Anderson or them sort of players. So we've got to do the best with a pretty, small budget.
Yeah, but I think it suits the club. I think it suits the town as well. Blue collar, hardworking town. Obviously, you know more than me, but from what I've read and heard, that would seem to be true. And actually, you mentioned, how you can't spend a 45 million on Haller Anderson, and I mean, Haller I think has actually been good, but Felipe Anderson hasn't had a good year in my opinion. I don't think he's been worth the 42, 43 that we paid for him, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there isn't that that consistent, hardworking mentality, that consistent mentality of I'm going to give everything for my manager and the badge.
Sure.
I don't see that in West Ham, and I think it shows in the inconsistent results and performances. So anytime we play a team like a Burnley, like a Bournemouth, a team who is physical, a team who has that culture and identity, it really seems like we struggle with that mightily. And I think this, and as I told you before the episode, I like to sprinkle in some facts. There's actually a head-to-head fact that sort of speaks to that point. Is in the last 28 top flight away matches against Burnley, West Ham have actually only won 4 of those 28. They've drawn 9 and they've lost 15. I don't think that Turf Moor is a tough place just for West Ham. I don't think it's just a West Ham thing. I really think Turf Moor is a place that probably can give Burnley 6 to 8 additional points a year just because of that home field advantage. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they like to have small dressing rooms and kind of cold showers and things like that to kind of make it not the most hospitable place in the world. And this time of year, it's usually freezing cold and raining. It's kind of like going to Green Bay. So it's kind of, and I mean, we have kind of similar kind of mentality as Green. You got Green Bay there, which
I
I
hate
think
Green
everyone
Bay,
enough.
Mike.
That's all right. But they're not a big city, and they
Right.
kind of Burnley's a town of 70,000 people, which is minute, really,
Yeah.
for uh, a team on this sort of stage. So, and you get usually 20 couple thousand there. So there's about maybe a quarter of the town there every time they play a game. So
Wow.
it is a different place to go and play. And, sometimes the flair players aren't really up for that sort of environment. And, a player like Felipe Anderson probably wants to be playing for a Manchester United or one of the big name teams. And
Hmm.
I think, you can see what a talented player he is. But he's got to be up for the game. And if he's not up for the game, he's going to be found out. So it's going to be that'll be an interesting game because you've got that, battle between flair and kind of honest hard work. And we'll see how that turns out.
I have a bad feeling that it'll turn out, in your favor. I think we're saying the same thing as, we that flair and that way of playing usually doesn't lend itself to that type of environment where it's cold, windy, rainy, and you have a team who's defending their home turf, and certainly doesn't want to lose in front of their fans, especially
Sure.
with over a quarter of the town's population at the match. So we've established and we agree that Burnley is a squad that is becoming established in the Premier League themselves. I think we both agree that a huge reason for that is, is that has been that consistent culture and identity set from the top. Now, over the last couple of years, you guys have had some really positive results. 2 years ago, you qualified for Europa League, had a phenomenal year. Last year, I know you guys didn't get into the Europa League group stage, so the Europa League didn't affect a majority of your year, but I know you guys started off slowly. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that you were playing a few extra games, maybe didn't get the rest that you guys usually would get, and then did start off slowly, but finished pretty strong in the second half of the year. Weren't really in a relegation battle when it came down to it. I'm wondering we're already in November, but I'd like to ask people what your expectations were of the club before the season started, and if those expectations have changed at all, or if they're similar to where they were in the summer.
I would love to tell you that we hope to be challenging for the title, but no,
Yeah.
we start off every year wanting to get to 40 points to avoid relegation. And last year it took a fair while because I think going into January we only had the same amount of points we have right now. So,
Oh, wow.
and I think last year Europa League really hurt us because we started playing games in July.
Yeah.
And the players just they looked tired out. And when your team's based on, work rate, being tired out and traveling all the time to the other side of Europe, because we played in Greece and Turkey several times,
Mm-hmm.
that was a big factor. But this year we don't have any excuses. So kind of the little bit of a dip in form we've had is a bit of a worry because we don't have a big squad, and you can't really turn things. You can't really put a lot of different players in. So we're really relying on the manager to get the team whipped up and back fighting again.
Yeah. Speaking of that form, you guys have lost your last three, with only one win in your last five. Um, when you look at the overall body of work so far, here into November, what are your thoughts on the season so far? What have you guys? Are you worried at all about relegation? Do you believe the club has met your individual expectations? What have been the positives and negatives? So I'm just sort of wondering what you think about the season so far cumulatively.
There's been some good performances, but we played Leicester a couple of games back, and we lost 2-1. They had a very unfortunate for us, goal disallowed, which was
I saw that.
Very debatable.
I didn't really I still don't really understand that call. It was a foul on Johnny Evans, who seemed to trip over himself. No.
Yeah, it was frustrating. I mean, we were hoping VAR was going to level the playing field a little bit, and then it ended up that in that particular game, I think it lost us a point. The Chelsea game, I think if Pellegrini was watching that game, he might see a way to beat us, because Pulisic's speed was something that really unnerved us, and kind of that game really exposed what our weaknesses are.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, on our home field really showed us up a little bit. So we're kind of hoping that we get back to the form we had at the start of the season, when we really looked like a pretty tight unit. And hopefully you don't kind of catch us on the same sort of form we were in last week, where we were very poor against Sheffield United. So we'll wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, you guys, well, first speaking to the Chelsea game, I did watch most of that game actually, and yeah, I think some speed definitely did hurt you guys. I think from a West Ham perspective, though, we tend not to utilize our speed effectively. I mentioned Felipe Anderson.
Yeah.
Manuel Lanzini also struggled. He's now been pushed. He's been dropped for Robert Snodgrass, who, while not as talented as Lanzini, has scored 2 goals in the 2 games that he started. So he's going to keep his spot. And I actually think that's perfect for this game, because I think Snoddy is the type of player who will not back down from any physicality and will have his work rate at 110%. But going back to my point, yes, West Ham have speed. We have the talent to break down a team like Burnley, especially your defense, which is probably worrying for you, because your defense has sort of been the stalwart of your team's success. You guys have given up 9 goals in your last 3 games, which is a lot. But West Ham, though, seem to just not, and you may see this tomorrow, hopefully not, we just seem to not be able to utilize our speed effectively. We seem to go on a counterattack, maybe even have numbers, and slow it down, pass sideways, pass backwards. It seems like no one really has any confidence attacking any defense. And I think that if we play on the back foot like that, Burnley will have no trouble keeping even a clean sheet. And actually, a little fact, you guys have actually won your last 5 home league fixtures against sides outside the quote unquote Big Six, and you actually you guys have not given up a goal in any of those games to teams not named Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, United, City, or Liverpool. So take that for what it's worth. West Ham also we're talking about bad form. We actually haven't won at all in our last 5 games, 3 of them being losses. And it's actually our worst run since we went 8 matches without a win from October to December of 2017. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think both teams are in poor form, but usually West Ham is the gift that keeps on giving. And when we do play a team who is struggling for form, struggling for goals, and struggling for points, you usually want to play West Ham because we're likely to give you one or multiple of those things. Before we get into the game, though, Jorge's here. Hey,
Sorry,
Jorge.
guys. I'm so sorry. I thought I was in traffic and I couldn't get into my email, realizing that I was at 6:30 Eastern time, not Central time. So I do apologize. I only got my emails now because I have finally Wi-Fi service out of my work building. So I do apologize.
No worries, man. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, I was about to ask Mike, from a West Ham perspective, who should we be afraid of? Like, what should we be afraid of on the Burnley squad? But before we go into that, Jorge, I'd like to ask you a little bit about how you became a Burnley fan.
Okay. It all started the 14-15 season. That's how it all started, pretty much when NBC Sports Network pretty much is the EPL coverage. That's where it all started, and I fell in love with it. Fell in love with the fact that it has an identity, a community identity, and a manager's identity of what they want to do. It all started from there, and I just grew into it year by year and loved it ever since. And then Mike told me about the North American Clarets that they had a supporters group here on Facebook that I only recently found out probably a couple of years ago. And that's how I got more into the Burnley supporters, knowing that it's not just me and there's other people across North America. I did know at one point we did do I don't want to say get together, but pretty much like a annual event that we did in Boston, where we had about, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, probably around 20 to 25 people show up to support Burnley, even though it was a 0-0 draw against Brighton. But the fact that there was at least 20 people plus 2 years ago when we went to the Europa, got qualified for the Europa League was a big accomplishment, and fell in love with it ever since. Again, an identity of the club itself is prevalent in the community, but both on and off the pitch. And they're just not the kind of team that normally people would support, but it's a team that punches above its weight amongst the England elites. And we want to keep it that way and stay as relevant as possible. And every year that Burnley's in the league, I feel like we get more and more supporters. The more that we stay up, the more traction that we get, and the more visibility that we get in the continent.
Yeah, well said. You mentioned community a lot. And Mike, we talked about it a lot too, about how, Burnley's a one-town team. The community is really invested in it. And I think, this may apply more to fans like Jorge and I, who aren't from a specific part of England, supporting a team that you don't have a hometown affiliation for. I don't want to say it's more difficult, but that may be the best way to say it. Just because, for me, I love Chicago sports. It's easy. My family are Chicago sports fans. I grew up here. Okay, sure. My hometown team. But when you support a team that you don't have a hometown affiliation with, I guess it may not be difficult to start rooting for them, but I think it may be difficult to have that passion and intensity, not only remain consistent, but improve and get more intense and passionate over time. And I think the one thing that allows for that fandom to continue is the community of people that you watch games with and that you talk about the team with and the results, the good, the bad, and the ugly. For me, the Chicago supporters group of West Ham are a huge reason why I think my intensity and passion for West Ham has not only stayed the same, but has grown. So well said, Jorge. Now moving into the actual game, we had Thomas in the chat say that Barnes and Wood, he thinks will cause us being West Ham real problems tomorrow. I know Chris Wood, he was injured for a couple games. Am I correct?
Yeah, he's been out. He's had a hamstring injury the last couple of games, and we really need him back. We've missed him, and he's also scored in the last 4 games he's played against West Ham. So
yeah,
we really, really need him back.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. Thomas thinks they're going to give us problems. If you were a West Ham fan, what would you say could really cause us problems from Burnley's side of things.
I think the player you need to watch out for is Dwight McNeil on the left wing.
Mm-hmm. He's the youngster, right? 20 years old, 21?
Under 23 in the England International. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a player who gives us a little bit of something different. We're a little bit predictable without him firing, so I think he'll I know he scored his first goal against you guys last year, his first ever Premier League goal.
Yes.
And his crossing and being able to get behind the fullback, I think that'll be a big part of the game tomorrow. And depending how your right back does, might depend how the game goes.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up our right back position. It's been a position of, I'll say, controversy as of late. We started this season with Ryan Fredericks, a young, 26-year-old. I guess that's still young, pacey right back. Yeah, maybe not young in sports terms, young in life terms. But yeah, 26.
26 is old in sports terms.
Yeah. But he still has tremendous pace. And even Penny just said in the comments, let's hope Zab ain't playing then. Zabaleta, who we all love, all West Ham fans love. He always gives it all for the badge. And he did have a couple good years for us, but the last year and a half, you could just see his legs they're gone. They're not going, they're gone. And you mentioned McNeil. Zabaleta, McNeil plays on the left, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Zabaleta would have to be dealing with him. For some reason, Zabaleta has started the last two matches, and Fredericks, from all accounts, is not injured. He certainly didn't play to the point where he needed to lose his position. He played fine. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, because if Zabaleta starts tomorrow, I'm seriously questioning the manager's tactics. Unless Fredericks has it, I don't know why we wouldn't have heard it by now. Jorge, what do you think West Ham fans need to be worried about the most?
Probably, obviously, Barnes and Wood would be an obvious answer because those two together form a great partnership.
Yeah.
But I was going to say what Mike has said. Dwight McNeil has always been a talisman. Ever since he came on this past January, he's been doing wonders for us. Obviously, he's not the finished product yet, but he is definitely game in and game out, improving his skills, improving everything else. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't remember if Goodmanson's back yet from injury, but Goodmanson,
I don't
for
think
me,
he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be. No.
Okay. Because if he was, it would have been him. But otherwise, the only other person I can think of is Robbie Brady. Just a little bit, adds a little bit difference of in the midfield itself. Maybe if Eric Peters is dropped and we have that would probably be my other talisman, because obviously he hasn't been performing lately. Eric Peters, hopefully he gets dropped with another one of our left backs. But pretty much our left hand side has been pretty good. Obviously, Zabaleta is getting a little bit older, so with a pacey winger like Dwight McNeil, that could definitely help us get the crosses in needed to score the goals. But we'll see how it goes tomorrow with the team choice. But definitely Dwight McNeil on the left-hand side, and maybe Eric Peters if he's dropped. But I believe it's Charlie Taylor, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to get them confused with Barnsley. But besides the point, basically our left-hand side is pretty much a very good fluid side to go after and go after the attack.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, based on all that, I really do hope that Frederick starts. Yeah, I'm not really sure what Pellegrini is seeing. We will see though tomorrow. Yeah, I can confirm that Goodmanson is remained or will remain sidelined tomorrow. I also just saw that Ashley Barnes signed a new contract this week.
Yeah, actually, Chris Wood signed one today too. So,
okay, damn. Well, honestly, talking to you guys has made me. What's that, Jorge?
I was going to say the power of a manager, because Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes put faith in Sean Dyche and vice versa, and that's why they want to stay here as long as possible. They feel they're loved here by the fans. They feel loved by the coach and the staff. So why not stay a little bit longer with their contract extensions?
Yeah, we were talking about how important Sean Dyche is to this club, mainly due to the consistent identity and culture that he's brought. And he's also. Hey Jorge, you're a little muffled. Can you repeat that?
I was going to say, as a community as well, because he has helped change Burnley for the good. There's even a bar named after him.
Yeah,
there's paintings all throughout Burnley with him. So he's made a huge impact in the community as well, not just in the club.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things you're saying make me super worried about tomorrow. I think Burnley are really going to respond. They've been playing poorly lately, and you guys really got your butts kicked by Sheffield United, and I don't expect anything less but a 110% response from you guys. On top of that, Chris Wood comes back, and on top of that, your two strikers just signed new contracts, and I think we all know when you sign a new contract, you're a little bit more up for it. You're a little bit more, okay, now I got to show the fans why I deserved this new contract. It doesn't sound good from a West Ham perspective at all. And let's just dive right into the match. What are you guys seeing? What are you guys thinking for the upcoming match? Are you guys worried about anything? Are you guys confident? Mike, we'll start with you. What are you thinking about tomorrow's match?
The way we've been playing, I think the first 15 minutes could be crucial. I think if we start off pretty good and the crowd get behind the team, it could be a good game for us. I think if we start off cold and everyone's a little bit edgy, when you're on a bad run, it kind of can go badly from that point. So, I'm hoping for a Burnley victory, obviously, but, we haven't been playing too well. So, we need maybe a little bit of luck to go our way. And I think West Ham are probably looking for the same thing too. So it could be a game that gets turned on its head by one decision.
Jorge, what are your thoughts? Hey Jorge, you're muffled again. It's hard to hear you again. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry. For me personally, I think obviously the crowd is definitely going to be with us. They're going to be the 12th man. Yeah. Personally, for me, if the first 15 minutes don't go well, it's not going to be as enthusiastic from the fans itself. But if we do get that first goal within that first 15, obviously the crowd's going to be up for it. The crowd's going to be behind us, cheering and getting them to score more. For me, I'm hoping at least Ashley Barnes gets on the score sheet, get him some confidence back again, get him on a hot streak. So that way that partnership up front of Wood and Barnes is great. I too agree. Obviously with the contract extension, it's not just that they feel like they're living up to it and they want to prove it. It's more at ease that they know like in the next couple of years I'm going to be at this club. It's going to be like almost like a financial decision for them and their family. So for me, that it's a burden off their shoulders that they can now focus on the game itself and not have to worry about any more contracts for the next couple years. I don't know what the contract extension of Chris Wood is because I never got wind of it because my phone doesn't have any Wi-Fi at my job. So this was just the first I've heard of Chris Wood extending, which is fantastic as a side note. But for me, I think those two are really going to be up for it. I think they might score a couple goals. And personally, for me, I think they're going to have I would like to see the game done and dusted by the end of the first half.
Are there any Penny has a great question in the comments. Are either of you guys worried about anything on West Ham side? Are you guys worried about any specific players, any specific
Declan Rice?
Declan Rice?
Declan Rice? Yeah.
Okay. Mike?
He's been trying to get every single time to the England national team. So obviously he's going to keep proving it. So he wants to put out his best performances game in and game out so that way he can get into Gareth Southgate's squad.
Yeah. He's one of our bright young players out of the academy. Mike, anything you're nervous about from a West Ham perspective?
I'd be nervous if Pellegrini's had his scouts at our last two games, because in the last
I'm
game
sure they have been.
in the last game against Sheffield United, Chris Wilder really he outthought us completely, and you could see that he looked at our weaknesses and played completely into that, and we fell for it. So between that and the Chelsea game, we kind of were on the front foot, and they caught us on the break twice, and then the game was pretty much over. So I think if Pellegrini's smart, he might kind of sit a little bit deep, or maybe play a pretty strong defense and then hope, to kind of catch us on the break. So I think it really depends on, how you guys break away from us. So I'm a little worried. I've always been an admirer of Antonio when he's played against us. Mm-hmm. And Matt Loughton at right back has really been having a bad couple of games. So if he comes into the team and he plays there, I'm a little worried about him.
Yeah, I have read that a little bit too, that Loughton struggled a bit. And that's Felipe Anderson territory. And I've told you my opinions on him so far this season. I don't think he hasn't been awful, but when you pay £42 million for someone, the expectations are high already. And he had a good year last year. He had about 9 goals, 4 assists, I believe, or 5 assists. And when that happens, the expectations only continue to rise. And he has not met those expectations. In fact, I think he's been a little worse off than last year. And this actually is a game for me where I want to see him. I want to see him attack. I want to see him show some emotion. I want to see him have this confident mentality attacking the left wing, because we will not be successful without him. And Matt Loughton struggling gives him an opportunity to do that. Will he take it? Remains to be seen. Yeah, Penny even said Pellegrini doesn't seem to be studying our players, and there has been some internal, but between some West Ham fans, I mean, there are already a couple Pellegrini out Twitter account handles. I think it's a little too soon for that. However, I think the tactics need to start to be questioned. The tactics don't seem to be changed or modified, enhanced based on our opponent at all. We seem to be playing the same way, very lax, very casual, and also our defense has been all over the place lately. So, but all that being said, I want to ask you guys for, obviously we need to make some predictions. We got to see if one of us hits the nail on the head, so to speak. So Jorge, I'll go with you first. What do you think the score of tomorrow's match will be?
3-1. Burnley, excuse me. Sorry, 3-1 Burnley.
3-1. Mike?
I'm a little less confident, but I think we might just squeak a 2-1 win, maybe with a pretty late goal. We'll see how that goes.
I usually agree with one of my guests. I think like the first 5 shows, I had the same score as my guest. I do agree with the result. Don't agree with the score. I'm going to go 2-0. I don't see us scoring tomorrow. I do not see us scoring tomorrow. I see Burnley coming out on the front foot, scoring a goal in the first 20 minutes. West Ham may be settling down, getting a few chances as the first half goes on, but not scoring. And then I see Burnley doing the same thing in the second half, come out in the second half, punch us in the mouth, get a goal by the 70th minute. West Ham has a couple chances later on, but really can't put anything away. And I think it'll be a generally comfortable 2-0 win for you guys. I hope we're all wrong, and West Ham can get the 3 points. I just don't see it. I just don't see it right now. Hopefully I'm proven wrong, though. We'll see. But guys, thank you so much. We'll close it off right there. really do appreciate the time you guys have taken out of your busy schedules to talk with me. It's always
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's always cool to talk to supporters of other clubs and get to learn about their club, their fans a little bit more. Talk to them about how they became fans, etc. So really enjoyed speaking with you guys.
That Declan Rice was apparently called up constantly to the English national team, so I do apologize for that. But
oh yeah, yeah. I actually thought that's what you meant originally, but yeah, no,
I have no idea. I don't follow that much of the English national team. No offense. So
yeah, no, yeah, he's been a consistent call up for the last year or so, and has done pretty well. He'll probably he'll probably get in the European Championships in a couple of years, or no, sorry, next summer. But yeah, guys, I'll let you guys go. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I definitely would love to, on the reverse fixture, have you guys on again and do this all over again. It was fun. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Sounds fabulous. And hopefully this time my Wi-Fi would work so I can get the link beforehand.
No worries, man. No, I've been there. I've been there. All right, guys.
Bye, Mike.
I'm actually watching the game with a West Ham fan tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, hopefully he's upset.
I'll be watching in the comforts of my own home. That's for sure. I'm not going out tomorrow. Excuse me. Woo. Long day.
All right, guys. Well, enjoy your Friday night. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully, I enjoyed a little more than you. Take care, guys.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
Take care.